So I was riding my local bus, as always, nothing out of the ordinary, but when I was watching out the window, instead of the usual bleak gray scenery of my, so to speak, beautiful city, I saw this. This picture isn't the exact one that was there, because I didn't have enough time to snap a photo, but it's close. It really begs the question, what the hell do we even use AI for? The global AI market is valued at around 620 billion in 2026, but if they're valued at such high amount, they must be providing hella value, is what I would have thought if I hadn't researched this topic like 5 minutes ago, and found out that despite being valued at 620 billion, most AI companies don't get any of their own income because they don't provide serious enough value. Even without research, just think for yourself. The easiest example would be OpenAI from ChatGPT. Their AI model has subscriptions that no one buys, API access to models, enterprise contracts, and that's it. Hospitals, police, fire departments, construction workers, they don't use this AI because while it's pretty good for ordinary people searching some kind of information for serious work, it's not smart enough. And neither are other companies' AI. You might think it's the same situation like with Amazon when it just started out as a small business, was unprofitable for a few years and then became successful thanks to the investors and the fact that, well, unlike with OpenAI, Amazon sold actual products that everybody needs, like books when it just started out, and created an infrastructure and logistics so cheap that not using Amazon would eventually become uncomfortable for people. This is not the case, at least for the foreseeable future, for OpenAI. Of course, there are AI models that can do some specific, very specific work well enough, but it's mostly proprietary models for hospitals or engineers that ordinary people will never get access to. Just like in my case when I saw these posters, it's literally AI slop. It's slop because it's useless, and despite the fact millions of investors still throw money at it. One thing was seeing these AI slop videos and posts on the internet, but seeing something like this in the real world makes me wanna say,
legalize nuclear bombs.
no. The funniest thing is that I live in a country where putting up a poster on any kind of city infrastructure must be very strictly regulated. Like, you can't even put up a poster of your missing dog on the wall in the middle of nowhere without permission. So all of this AI stuff had to be approved by a real human, but to be honest, I can't say that I don't understand what kind of human approved this. When I was writing the script, personally, I didn't encounter any other AI slop in the real world besides the one I've already described. If it wasn't for the other, it's not exactly related to the real world topic I've covered, but it did too influence the lives of real world people. So this news I saw, AI chatbot simple password risked exposing personal data of millions of McDonald's job applicants. The researchers came across the issue via a Reddit thread highlighting McDonald's use of an AI chatbot to recruit new hires. In just 2 tries, they successfully guessed both the username and password. Gaining full administrator access to the hiring platform, they found they could randomize applicant ID numbers to view names, email addresses, and phone numbers across listings that appeared up to 64 million. The chatbot in question, called Olivia, is made by Paradox AI and branded as MacHire. Main problem right now for all these accusatives is that AI is very far away from being perfect. It goes without saying it's getting better, but we are still at least 5 to 8 years away from AI taking human jobs, like a whole crisis of employers, CEOs, managers, and so on preferring AI instead of humans. They've tried it. All these executives, there have been cases like this where CEOs or managers try to use AI for different tasks like logistics, project management, sales, marketing, accounting. But as I've said, it didn't really work out. The people they fired to save, as they thought, hundreds of millions of dollars had to be put back on employment. There is also a lot of circularity in AI. Let me explain. Nvidia invests in AI startups companies. Those AI companies use funding mostly from Nvidia and others to buy massive amounts of Nvidia GPUs. This drives Nvidia's revenue and stock price up. Nvidia profits and can invest more, and the cycle continues. Why have I decided to specifically name Nvidia in this circularity cycle and not other companies like Microsoft that has invested more than 10 billion? Nvidia holds roughly 80 to 90% market share in all AI training chips. Their CUDA software ecosystem has become the industry standard, which makes it very hard to switch to alternatives like AMD or Intel. What I've just explained applies to almost all AI companies because they all need those chips. Mark Zuckerberg, Meta, releases powerful models for free. Chinese companies like DeepSeek build competitive models for a fraction of the cost. This means the product is constantly losing value. This doesn't mean that OpenAI will stop existing in a couple of years, but right now, unless something changes, this company and others alike are likely to repeat the fate of hundreds of the dot-com bubble companies. If a couple of years ago it seemed like a good idea to invest in all these AI companies' stocks, now it's a real possibility that the 2001 era of the dot-com burst might repeat itself. The only optimal solution if you want to still invest in AI, it's either Nvidia because it sells the shovels, printing money regardless of who wins, Microsoft because it owns Azure. Many small AI companies use Azure as a cloud service, so as I said earlier, it sells shovels that AI companies will have to use. Even back in the old days of the gold rush, it wasn't miners who got rich, but the people who sold shovels. Next, we have Meta. Even though it gives models for free, it uses AI to improve ads, which is their real business. They don't need to monetize AI directly. I wouldn't fear too much that AI as a concept is going to disappear, even if this so-called bubble does burst, because there are still a lot of companies like Nvidia, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Meta that will figure it out one way or another. So even if the biggest giants like OpenAI fall, they'll just get replaced by other AI giants, because a company like Microsoft doesn't just sell AI models. Microsoft sells a ton of stuff, which is why they can use their own income to improve. In 2021, AI was garbage, and it's still mostly garbage because most AI models can just generate funny videos and pictures, which is useless for big conglomerates. You might think I'm wrong. You could say companies like Coca-Cola could use AI videos to replace their usual ads, where they use animation, which is exactly what they tried a few months ago, but it blew up in their face. Everyone hated their ad, and when I watched it, I wouldn't say it was too bad, but you could definitely say something was off, something from a corporate dystopian laboratory. I was watching YouTube a couple of days ago and found out that a lot of management level jobs are AI summarizing their subordinates' work or reporting on progress higher up by using AI for email creation and summarization. Not gonna lie, I myself have seen people in my school use AI to craft emails, and then people on the other side using AI to minify them and extract the facts only. Although after saying so many bad things about AI, I still like to say that there is almost a 100% certain fact that there will be hundreds of companies that will be able to withstand the trial of time by providing insane value, like it's been shown in recent years with certain medical innovations. I'm not gonna pretend like I understand what I'm about to read, but that's about it. AlphaFold from DeepMind solved a 50-year-old problem by predicting the 3D structure of proteins with near-perfect accuracy. This has accelerated drug discovery massively. Researchers can now understand disease mechanisms in weeks instead of years. Over 200 million protein structures have been mapped. Alright, this one seems like it's pretty good improvement. This AI mapped millions of protein structures, which will help researchers build better treatments for diseases, so that's pretty good. Alright. IDXDR, the first FDA-cleared autonomous AI diagnostic system. It detects diabetic retinopathy, probably retinopathy, I don't know, from retinal photos without a doctor's input, enabling screening in primary care clinics with no ophthalmologist present. Also, I couldn't find what the next technology is called, but we now have MRI acceleration. AI now reconstructs MRI images up to 4 times faster, reducing scan times and improving patient throughput without losing image quality. And I could really continue on and on. There have been massive improvements in medicine, but at the end of the day, all of this is very new and is experimental at best and is accessible only to the very rich at worst. For the next 8 years minimum, an ordinary person won't be interacting with all these AI improvements for one or another reason, but if we are gonna be completely honest, it's probably because most people won't be able to afford it. But the good news is that everything that's considered innovation today will be considered regular tomorrow, like it was with aviation back in the 60s. Right now, the AI slop we see on our phone almost on a daily is just that, AI slop on our phone. I don't want to imagine, I mean I can imagine, but I don't want to imagine how infuriating it'll truly be, especially if you work in corporate setting, when you have to wake up at 5 a.m. to go to your slave cock position of putting millions into your boss's wallet while you earn chiclets, and having to deal with your managers using AI to summarize and grade your performance while they don't even remember your name, and after suffering like that for a few more decades, just being completely replaced and thrown out without anything. Because like it's been said before, you will own nothing and be happy. By the way, we don't need to imagine imagine it because it's already happening. But I wouldn't worry too much, not because the prospect of not accomplishing anything significant and barely surviving while living in a so-called first world country isn't terrifying, but because unless you have serious computer skills that you could monetize, unfortunately there ain't anything you can do. Maybe it isn't too late to start learning, who knows? Sometimes I'm thinking about how funny it is that the way some of our ancestors lived is something you need thousands of dollars for now. I'm talking about that eating clean food, having numerous relationships with people in your community, having a wife at 20 years old is considered crazy nowadays. I don't want to be one of those YouTubers that are saying the old way is the best way, because it really ain't. But when it comes to the relationship topic, I remember how when I was 15, I was genuinely astonished that my dad knew half the city. Not literally obviously, but whenever we went to a doctor's appointment or just shopping, we'd bump into his friends. Not only do I not have any friends, but I also don't have any friends who are lawyers or work in the police or something like that. And neither do most people my age. What would you prefer? Like asking your dad if he knows a guy who knows a guy so you can get a job that most people would spend years trying to achieve, or going to business meetings using LinkedIn and all this other nonsense, only to still not get hired because your boss chose the guy who was recommended by his dad. Especially if you remember that 90% of all job applications are being filtered through by AI, especially on LinkedIn. Then you finally understand that it's all pointless. Well, I mean, you'll get a gold star from the society for trying, but I hope you understand what I mean. After all these years, ever since I turned 18, I've realized how pointless it all is. All you need for happiness is a small community of people that you care about, a small house on the edge of the forest, clean water, food with no pesticides and like a million other chemicals, no war, and that's it. Obviously it'd be nice to have access to electricity and the internet, but I described the basics. That's biologically what makes us humans happy. Everything else is just extra. But getting the things, those essential ones that I've described, for most guys is out of reach, even though we were born in the first world countries. But what's the solution? There isn't one solution that applies to all. I think doing literally anything at all that doesn't make you wanna opt out, if you know what I mean, is good enough. Try to find a dream that you can go after that is completely independent of other people's actions. Because finding true love depends on other people's actions. Even if you find a person you care about, he or she might not care about you, so your dream fails. But becoming an athlete, on the other hand, is something that is only up to you. The more you put in, the more you get out. Becoming a businessman also partially depends on other people, but only partially. You can still improve your skills and convince people to buy your services or products. You need to find anything that you like. Preferably it should be something you are already good at, but from what I've seen in all my 20 years of life, I'd say most people are completely talentless. In that case, find something that you would like to do and get as good at it as humanly possible, and then try to monetize it. But it's still gonna be long years before AI can leave a large population completely jobless. But I also doubt that it's gonna happen in the next century. It'll happen in the next 10 years for sure. So prepare by learning computer skills. Alternatively, you could try becoming an OF model, but you know what I mean, survival is survival. Thank you for watching this video or listening to it. Please consider a subscription and leave a comment about your experiences with AI Slop, maybe something that you saw at your workplace or heard from your friend's story. Our conversation is not over. I'll talk to you very soon in the next video. Have a nice rest of the day.